Thank you, Bjorn, for joining me today. I am Peter Weitzman, your co-host for today, and I have Bjorn Larson, also from Life Money U, BCU's financial wellness program. And Bjorn, I want to ask you a question first.
Yes.
Do you know why there are no big gulps in your area? Because they're not mini sodas. Yeah,
I like that. That's a good
that
dad joke. I
was
think I think you're
terrible.
starting to up your ante on the dad jokes over there. I'm gonna start using that one on my side too. I think it's gonna work well.
I apologize for that. That was brutal, but I was trying to figure out there's not a lot of ways that you can work Minnesota into the conversation, but you are from Minnesota, and how things going up there?
Good. Yeah, we
Yeah,
are well into summer here, and it's
heat wave
hot,
up there.
hot,
It's hot.
humid,
Yeah.
sunny till late. Hard to get kids to bed at night.
So being down here near the BCU headquarters in the Chicago area, it's been a warm week. The grass is reflecting that. So one of the reasons that we are getting together today is to talk about life, maybe talk a little bit about money, and find out a little bit more about you. But I'm just kind of curious, what do you want to get out of our conversations?
Well, I think it's always helpful to kind of do some deeper dives into different money stories, financial topics. There are a lot of great general tips out there, but there's often a lot more going on behind the scenes. As I've coached people, I've begun to realize that, after just a few questions, you really start to open the flower up, if you will, and unravel the details that are going on behind the scenes, and it kind of quickly moves into the life and the you part of that away from the money. So I think I want to talk about life. I want to talk about how the economic times are impacting, what's going on, but also hear stories too of people that have figured out how to do this well. And this is not an area that many people do well. There are some out there, but it kind of can go well for a while, and then things can change, and then you gotta rework your plan, and you gotta have a regular cadence of checking in. So excited
Yeah.
to both to have some good conversations together about what we're seeing out there, but then hear from others too on advice they have, and maybe bring in some experts from different areas.
Yeah, and we have been in the financial wellness space for a long time and professional financial services before then. And you and I have had conversations a lot, I mean, for years now, whether it's been part of our professional life or just over a drink in a hotel lobby or whatever it might be. And, one of the things that I realized and that I always appreciated is having someone else who was as passionate about kind of improving themselves in their financial life. And like I said, the money is more of the common denominator.
Yep.
It's kind of the way we equalize it. It's really usually not about the money, but those conversations that we've had many times, like I said, just off the record, off the cuff, in the most random places, and a Uber on the way to the airport, have been really beneficial to me. And I think it would not be an exaggeration to say that some of those have changed my life in many ways, whether it is, tackling debt or, just kind of rethinking an old concept that doesn't get rethought of a lot. I'm just kind of curious, from the conversations we've had in the past, was there anything in particular that you can remember back that sticks with you for some reason, a topic that we deconstructed or something that you were able to use and implement in your own life? I mean, do you recall any conversations that we had prior to this that, for whatever reason resonated with you?
Well, maybe a good example of this, to even just to tie what I was just saying about the general rules of thumb, is sort of in the vein of paying down debt. And I remember we had discussed one strategy that was out there about sort of accelerating your mortgage payments and paying that off. And most experts would say that's not smart to do that. That's the general rule of thumb, is that mortgage debt, and to be honest, my rate is super low. So I mean, it on the face value, it does not look like the smartest place to put some extra money. But as we got talking about that and kind of actually doing the math behind the scenes, and I think we read some different things together. We reached out to a few others. It started to change the possibilities, if you will, for me. It started to open up some new ways of thinking about it, and realizing that maybe kind of generally that is something you want to think hard about, especially if you're not able to, if you're choosing between doing that versus investing versus some other pieces. But that really changed my view of, like, before it was just very black and white. It was like, nope, I'm not even going to touch that because I should just put all my money somewhere else. But I started to really look at the math. And so for a period of time, I actually tried it out. I tried sort of accelerating paying off my mortgage and started to kind of dream about that and about, wow, that'd be kind of cool to not have a mortgage payment. That could really open it up here with a large family. That could really be freeing for us. So I stuck with that, I think, for about a year and a half, and now I've shifted to some other things. But that period of time that's a very memorable one, and I paid off a pretty big chunk, to be honest. So there was some serious success that came from that, and that was helped by
Because
our
those
conversations.
dollars that you put towards your mortgage are not just that 3% that you're paying that year, right? I mean, there's more power to that because of the length of the mortgage. And that's where I think people kind of underestimate, I only got a few extra dollars to throw towards a mortgage, or I got a little tax refund. I'm not sure where to put it. Should I throw it against mortgage? Should I just drop it in a savings account? Those types of things. But it's really kind of when you look at the long term pieces of a mortgage. How much money am I going to save in the long term? How much interest really am I going to save in the long term for every dollar that I put towards a mortgage? It's not that you have to pay it off today or tomorrow or anything like that. And it's not really even about, some people talk about making an extra mortgage payment once a year, and some of those things certainly helpful, right? But it's that dollar in many cases, even if you have a low interest rate, saves you $1 of total interest at some point in the mortgage too. So no, I totally agree. And I was going to say, one of the conversations, and I don't remember if you'll remember this, but we were talking about the gift tax. That I think there's a
Yes.
number of people out there that don't understand the gift tax. They don't do stuff because they're afraid of gift taxes. And maybe it's something that we should talk about at some point, because I think it's one of those really commonly misunderstood ones. And so as you and I were talking about that, it wasn't just about us helping, but you ended up helping some people that also misunderstood the gift tax. To me, why I am so excited about having us get together and now start recording some of these conversations is because you don't know where they'll go, but I know that people have been helped by just some of our conversations together, and that's why I really am hopeful that we'll talk about some things that are important to us, and maybe get joined by some people who have similar issues. Because I'm just kind of a middle America kind of guy, just trying to make his way in the world and try to figure out how to do right by myself and my family and for my community, and kind of have an impact and have a good life and enjoy things, and yet also do the things that hopefully will get us to retirement and financial freedom,
Yep.
and some comfort there too.
Yep. I totally agree. I'm in a similar boat. I have 4 kids, so I'm definitely thinking about their futures as well, and I hope to bring some of that in here and talk about how to navigate this with as a little bit bigger family, and how can I still make sure I'm prepared for retirement while also helping my kids. And they happen to all be girls too, so I'm thinking about a few different future expenses that could be part of their life. So we'll see, but I'm sure we'll go there, and I can't wait to get deeper on some of these things.
And I think you're our over average on the family size for sure. So that will be really interesting. And for people that maybe have a little bit larger family, I'm kind of under the average. So we're a 3-person household versus a 6-person household. So between the two of us, we're maybe more average. But I think that's good. Two different perspectives on
Yep.
it, and we can hopefully talk about that too. I think I'll be very interested to just kind of ask, especially as your girls are older than my son, for a lot of advice on how to get there, because you've been there and done it, and I think some of your tips so far have been absolute gold. Absolute gold. One of the things I wanted to ask you, we both work for a program called Life Money U. There are periods after each of those. Can you tell me just a little bit about what Life Money U is?
Yeah, good question. So Life Money U is a financial well-being program that started at BCU and grew up over time, if you will. Started about 10 or 11 years ago, somewhere right in there, early 2010s, and has sort of evolved as the financial wellness industry has evolved. It now consists of digital tools that are able to track spending, able to measure financial health, able to track credit score, really kind of self-service, scalable tools. There's also a number of different events and content and different things that we do at our company partners to really provide the setting for a whole broad scope of different people, especially for those that are maybe wanting to learn more about a topic or maybe are just kind of dipping their toes in financial wellness and trying to see what's out there. Then we have one-on-one financial coaches. We call them goal consultants, and we've got over 100 people actually at BCU who are certified and are able to meet with individuals. And that's where you really see testimonials of people working on things over time, getting that accountability, getting that advice along the way, and changing their life. And we've both done coaching, so we know the real value that is there. And then what's exciting is that BCU has a number of different financial health products that we've helped influence and have been a part of to offer to different people. We can offer savings accounts and good rates on loans and credit building tools and good mortgage products, all that. So ways to take action as people wish to go and take action. And the goal of the program is to improve financial health for everybody. So kind of however somebody wants to do that, if they want to do it themselves, want to work with somebody, they want to do a little bit of a combination of both. We've got all of that, and we work mostly in the large employer space, but I think now more than ever, we're going to be kind of looking at all different kinds of audiences, community, maybe individuals. So excited to sort of figure out ways this program can even be helpful to those of you who are listening as you want to take a next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And BCU, I mean, a fantastic, huge credit union, one of the largest in the space, has been really excited about offering this financial wellness program, and thus we exist, this Life Money U program. And what I'm really excited about today is that their commitment to helping people find their path to financial wellness and financial freedom and financial excitement and the things that they hope for and dream for means that we're here today, because of their generosity to make sure that we can go out and reach out to new people. So thanks to BCU for allowing us to do this podcast, because I'm hoping that we will reach tens of people, mostly family and friends.
Exactly.
But
Thanks, Mom.
it wouldn't be possible without their help. So super glad to do it. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and obviously right now in the summer of 2022, economic struggles are kind of back in the fore, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. But before I talk about or ask you about that in particular, I wanted to tell you something that I was looking at and I was surprised, and I kind of want to ask you if you were surprised about this too. So one of the things that I wanted to look at was, what are people Googling for these days in terms of financial help? And I found lots of questions about very specific things. But one of the things that I noticed that was lacking is the term recession in individuals' Google searches. And the funny thing is, as someone who works in the industry and someone like you, I feel like we can't get away from seeing headlines about, is the recession happening? Are we already in a recession? Is the recession predicted for next year? It doesn't matter. And, well, what will happen? And how do the markets react? And like recession, everyone talks about it. But as I was thinking about it, why aren't these showing up in individual searches? And does the individual consumer, when you get down to the person level, do they care whether or not we're in a recession? Or is it just more about, how does that affect me? Would I care if I'm searching for a financial solution, care whether we're in a recession or not? Is that maybe why that's not showing up in individual search results? It was just kind of an interesting phenomenon I saw. I don't have the answer for it. I kind of wanted to throw it out to you as a financial wellness expert as well, and just kind of get your thoughts on that. Doesn't seem to be a term that people are really searching for.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought there, and that's a very interesting thing to come across or not come across, I guess.
Yeah.
And you're right that we're sort of just waiting. I mean, I'm just waiting to sort of officially be declared. It just seems like it's inevitable. But maybe I do think one aspect that I again have seen over the last decade that has been a part of most people I've connected with is just sort of a lack of planning, a lack of preparation. And so both on the front end of a big change, something, that like a recession that would sort of impact somebody's life. So sort of lack of wanting to face that until it really is happening. So not preparing, not even really thinking about it. And then I would even argue, probably sort of not able to really realize that it's happening when it does happen. I think there will be a lag time on that side too, until it starts to directly impact something in your daily life, whether it drives up prices, your investments go down, maybe you wait till you get that quarterly statement in the mail to realize it because you're not actually looking. There's just like a real lack of paying attention or caring or planning that is happening there, both on the front and the back end. So I think there's a lag time kind of in both cases for people. I also think that we've had a nice run here. The market's had a nice run here for the last 10 plus years. I think I entered the workforce and I think we were kind of just around coming out of the last sort of downturn. And so it it really for a decade at least, right? It's been growth, growth, growth. And even when there's been, I mean, for 5 years, probably the last 5 years, there's been a thought that it that kind of make a turn. It could become a recession, and yet it's just continued to rebound, continued to go up. The market's gone up. So I think there's a little bit of a questioning there for maybe somebody that's maybe a little more in tune with what's happening economically, where they may just go, oh, they said that last time, and now it turned around. And then I think kind of just bigger picture, the message from financial experts, advisors who kind of want you to think long term is that on average the market has gone up over time. So there's like this mentality that just sort of ride it out, don't pay attention, and that might be a bit considered a little bit more of a savvy person where they're thinking longer term, especially if we're talking about retirement assets. So I think there's a lot of different factors going on. I'm not honestly super surprised because I think for most people it just comes down to, does it impact my day to day? Until it really starts to impact my day to day, unfortunately, there's not as many people really paying attention to it or caring about it. So and I'm guilty of that
Yeah.
too. I mean, I'm not saying that it's just the people out there. I think all of us to some level can only handle so much. And so with the tumultuous last few years here, I can see why people maybe just want to avoid another negative topic.
Well, you're right, and I was thinking about it. My father was over, when we first got married, and I was clipping some coupons out of the newspaper when there was such a thing. If you remember when newspapers existed, and my father was like, "Why are you clipping coupons in the newspaper? Why don't you just, focus more on your job and your career, and get raises and promotions and all that stuff?" And I was thinking, I am thinking about that. It's not like I'm not thinking about my career and just trying to get home to clip coupons. So I think some of it might be, I think, like you said, people might just be saying, like, I'm doing what I can do.
Yeah.
Whether we're in a recession or not, I don't know what else I would do. It's not like I'd work 80 hours a week. That wouldn't even be an offer to me. So I'm kind of curious about that. Something else you said too, and maybe ask you about this, but you said you kind of came into the workforce like right at the last recession. And so it kind of dawns on me that there are a lot of people, there's a large portion of the workforce that has never necessarily been in an economic downturn. For me, I'm a little older than you, so I remember it, and I kind of remember it like it was yesterday, but 2008, 2009 is, 14, 15 years ago at this point. I mean, it's a pretty long time, so you can actually have been in the workforce for a fairly long time and not have gone through that process. So, does that affect people, for maybe people like me that one was working and I started having money in 401ks and that I was watching and things like that. Do you think there is a difference between someone like me who has personally experienced it and someone this might be their first real experience with a tightening of the economy?
Yeah, I mean, everybody feels like a genius, when things are going well in the market. Everyone just feels like an investing genius. So I could see how, there's a chunk of people that maybe are in my kind of age range that, you know, sort of just feel like, gosh, I just put it in there and it just keeps growing, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't even have to think about it because it's just going well. But I also know that there is a group of maybe a little bit more on the younger millennial side, and then younger who I have at least seen and heard and experienced personally too, that are a bit more conservative. Kind of as we're just thinking about saving for the future, because they saw how much people lost, in 08, 09. They kind of were old enough to realize what was going on. So it was interesting how that, on the one hand, it shocked both, sounds like, you and, others in the workforce. It shocked those who are maybe close to starting in the workforce. And yet, that can kind of be quickly forgotten about after 12 plus years of economic growth. And people just kind of going, yeah, I just don't really have to do a whole lot to make it all work. So there's definitely an opportunity, I think, for all of us to learn a little more and maybe even learn some tips and tricks of the trade, especially as we kind of look out on this possibility. And prepare ourselves for what's next. I think, you and me included, because it's, again, even if we are working in this space, it's still easy to just kind of expect or think that everything's just going to be fine, like I don't have to make any changes. It's just going to all work out, because it kind of has continued to do that over the last decade plus. But it's important, I think, to get a few plans together to try to combat that mentality of just kind of going down the stream and make it, and not really worrying about it.
Well, and you've said it before, that there are opportunities to have a conversation, and I think, I'm certainly happy to talk about it with people who may be kind of trying to get their footing, I mean, and come up kind of my experiences back in 08, 09, and really it was not a V-shaped recovery like they said, so it kind of was a long slog back. But even for people who maybe their parents were affected, maybe they delayed their retirement, so, the Gen Z and even the recent grads and things like that. I mean, it could be a good opportunity to have that financial conversation with a parent, because, they may be able to add some context that people didn't see. It's really hard. And I don't know if you'd agree with this, but finances in general are one of those things that people try not to talk about, and it's kind of the duck, you look peaceful and serene on top and you're paddling like crazy underneath. And a lot of people try to not show that kind of stress at work or whatever it might be, and yet we don't know, maybe they're very stable, and maybe sometimes everything is just kind of falling apart. And I think that's one of the things that I'm hoping that we can address here and come up with some ideas, because in reality 99% of America gets affected by these types of things.
Right.
And particularly right now, regardless of what the actual measurable state of the economy and the GDP growth, we can get into what a recession is and how it's measured. And in many ways, and I studied economics in college, in many ways it's completely irrelevant, because at the macro, what does it matter?
Right.
If the economy is doing well and you lose your job, what does it matter?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you're looking for a job, and if the economy is doing poorly and you have a job, you might say, what does it matter to me? So I think, so many times we look at the macro, we look at these averages. If you were to average our families together, like I said, 4 and 2, all of a sudden, we're a little closer to the national average, but none of the rules about the national averages would probably apply to us, because you have to figure out how to
Right.
fly 6 people to a vacation, and I have to figure out how to only get 3 people there. So, I think too much generalization hurts. And that's one of the things I love about our program too, is that we have 100 plus goal consultants that are available to talk to people kind of about their individual issues. But getting back to, regardless of what the economy is doing at the macro, we know there are some things happening here at the front lines that are really affecting people, notably inflation, and that's the big buzzword of the day. And if you didn't know what inflation was, you are starting to feel it. My wife, who is not someone who cares about finances or numbers or anything like that, and she'll hear about it all the time, and yet say something like, oh my gosh, meat is really expensive. And we're like, for months now you've been hearing about inflation, but it's not until maybe you really see it that it dawns on you. And I'm just kind of curious, as a family of 6, someone who lives in a metropolitan area, I think you're a single income household.
Yeah.
A lot of people would look at you and say, hey, how does Bjorn do it? And are you affected by inflation? Or did your parents set up a trust fund when you were young, and so you have all this extra income so you don't have to worry about that? Are you feeling inflation, and what are you doing differently because of it, or are you doing anything differently?
I don't know anything about the trust fund yet. I'll have to look into that, see if that's hiding out there
Best kept
somewhere.
secret.
Exactly. I don't think
No
that's
Dylan McKays.
available.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are feeling it. We are feeling it everywhere. Same with my wife. I mean, same kind of thing. We talk about it a lot, but it's sort of not till, you go to the gas station and fill up the tank and go, whoa, I have not seen 3 digits in front of the period for a while on gas, filling up the tank. So gas for sure for us has been, a huge adjustment. We have a minivan, and it's got a big tank, and we've done a couple of road trips this summer, so we've been feeling it there. I back when we booked the road trips, I was thinking, okay, great, that's way cheaper than flying, and it still relatively is, but it came way up in cost for the trips we took so far. So definitely not as cheap as it was. Hard to think about gas being the highest ever in my life. I think for all of us ever in our lives, or most of us. So that's an area. Food for sure. I mean, we're like you said, we're six and we do shop at Costco pretty often, so that can help on the bulk side. But even that, you can just see how prices have just jacked up on everything. I mean, everything that what used to sort of be the joke in our family of, oh, we spent our $100 at Costco, which would equal basically a tank of gas and groceries, and it would usually be maybe a little bit over 100. Now is like, oh, we spent our $200 at Costco, so we just have changed the first digit, and it's crazy. If everything is a few bucks more and we're buying 10 things, I mean, it's like we're talking 50, $100 more every single time we're going out.
And it's money going out just to keep you at the same level. Here's my Costco story: is that they used to have, and only on certain days, because I think it's the freshness of the fish that's important. So they used to have a Costco poke bowl that was like sesame, soy, tuna on rice, or and it was. I thought it was a pretty good deal. And when I first discovered it, it was $9. And when I first discovered it, I'm talking about like a year ago. So it was a pretty good value. I love tuna, I love sushi, I love Japanese food, and when I would go to Costco, it would kind of be my treat because I was like, oh, this would be a good lunch. It's not that expensive. I really love poke, and if you go to a poke place around here, they're easily $20 for a poke bowl. But the last time I was at Costco, I noticed it was $17.99 now.
Oof,
Wow.
wow.
And I know that they say inflation's up 10%, and a variety of other things, but in some areas it has gotten really, really expensive. And so I haven't actually had one in a while because it's just another $6, $7, $8
Right.
for the exact same thing. And where I used to think that was a good deal, now, to be honest, the $21 or $22 cable places look to be kind of on par. So I wouldn't say my lifestyle has gotten worse. I'm not trying to say that, but we've really had to be proactive about where we start shifting.
Yeah.
And where you're getting, equivalent utility out of other things, right? And this is, kind of changing that basket of goods, that they talk about,
Yeah.
those CPI numbers, and or rearranging that basket of goods for you. The other thing that might be a good hack is that Costco, in many places, has, I think maybe in all the Costcos, they have gas stations. And so, that can be a little bit cheaper to get gas. Did you see that story? And I don't know that it was the whole story, but it was about how gas stations and the gas pumps have only had one digit before the decimal where it advertises the per gallon gas price, and that the new gas pumps need to be made with two digits.
Oh man.
In case
Say
we
it ain't
bust
so.
$10 a
Say it
gallon.
ain't so.
I saw that. I just thought it's funny that manufacturers are obviously thinking, well, it's better to be safer than sorry, I
Oh
guess. And
man.
count on $10 a gallon gas, that would be pretty
I
crazy.
think I mean, we've had the same thing where we still try to kind of only go once a month or less, I mean, we just try to kind of stock up and then never go back. But we'd be more willing to just kind of stock up on a few things because we were there. So we were big coffee drinkers, love Starbucks French roast. They have it on sale there usually every other month.
Mm.
So if we were, call it, mid-month of the month it's on sale, and I still had two huge bags at home, I know I've got plenty to last. But I know that the next month, we go through it pretty fast here, but only two of us are drinking
Likewise.
coffee. My kids, well, most of the time are not drinking coffee.
Soon.
Yeah, soon they'll be drinking coffee. We'll try to hold them off. But if I knew I'd run out the next month, then I knew I'd be paying full price. So I would be more willing to get the sale price now and really load up. I think you get six of those bigger bags. But
Mm.
but I'll be honest, even though they're on sale, I have not been buying ahead as much
Mm.
because I know what kind of bill we're going to have at the end of this trip, and it's way higher. And so definitely been saying no to the extra things. And I'm sure we're not an uncommon family. I mean, I'm sure that's a pretty typical thing that people are thinking when they're out there. And it just is interesting how the reality, but even the perception of higher prices kind of starts to just change the consumer. And I was also thinking, as you were saying, the increase. I mean, one part of this is just, I think, the depressing thought that prices will never go back. And I think in some areas like gas, they've obviously fluctuated because they went up to over three or closer to four a while back, and then they kind of came way down over the last few years to, gosh, it was under $2 for a while, I think, which was amazing. So that can fluctuate, but then there are other things that will never go down again. And I think that's the reality, and the sad reality for a lot of us who have lived a bit. We know that it's like, okay, the new baseline has been set, and now it's like we've got to adjust our thinking there. And I can now understand why when I go out to dinner with some, of my older relatives, like my grandmother or other relatives, and they kind of gasp at the prices of the meals, and they're like, "Oh my goodness, that's just too much. I can't spend that much." It sort of has been a family joke, kind of like, come on, like it's okay to enjoy yourself. But we are feeling that now. Like you just said, like I do not want to buy that poke bowl because it's double the price. So it's like in 20 or 30 years, if I don't know, if a tank of gas is if a gallon of gas is $20, I mean, I don't know what it's going to be in actual dollars, but I mean, that would be hard to pay that. It'd be a
So you're saying in the last
shocking.
12 months, the economy has converted us into cruise liner shuffleboard dinner at 4 o'clock demographic now, right? Because now we're the old grandparents complaining that dinner is too expensive
Is
and
it
all that.
cheaper then? Is it less expensive then?
Yeah. The specials are early. The specials are early. No, I totally agree with you. It's funny you mentioned that on the coffee side because I drink coffee and obviously I'm getting my coffee fix here. Do you buy whole bean coffee or do you buy ground coffee?
Oh man, I buy whole bean all the way. Whole bean all the way.
Wow.
I grind it every night. It is an extra step, but I am a strong believer that it's fresher. Now, we
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
recently been to a roaster and learned about how to do coffee really well, and I have been tempted to do the pour over and do the perfect amount
Oh,
of measuring and the perfect
wow.
temperature of brewing,
And the stamping of it
and I
and
just but I
measure out the
mean
milliliters of
and
water.
I came back so excited to try that. I was researching grinders and pour overs, and then like Wednesday of that week hit, and I was like, that's way too much work.
You're like, I've got other things. If I go to those workshops too, and I bring my plastic canister of Folgers crystals, will they look down on me on that? Because you just put it in the water, and all of a sudden it becomes coffee. It's almost like magic.
They'll
Who wouldn't
take
doing
it and
that?
dump it out in the sink.
Yeah, I love it. So I have found something that I was always hoping that we could find a topic that we could disagree on. I am hashtag ground coffee over here.
Really?
I do have a bean grinder. I just found it takes a little while to grind the beans, and sometimes if you don't go enough, you find the little big bean particles, and if you go too much, it really becomes powdery. And my issue with it is it's a second device I have to clean up. So I kind of started ordering ground coffee. Now, one of the things, and here's my hack for people that are thinking about this, because especially as prices are going up, and if you can find sale prices on stuff like you're talking about and want to stock up, so I do sometimes, if I find a good deal on coffee, and I'm not really brand loyal to coffee, I kind of like my certain roasts and the certain types. What I will do, even though it's ground, is freeze it as soon as I get it. So put it in the freezer. That seems to draw out the life
Hmm.
of that coffee because I believe you. If you get the bean, I think in the bean form itself, it's going to last longer anyway. So you don't have to do as much. But if you buy ground, because it has so much surface area, it can start to lose its flavor, its potency. And I've just kind of found that other than the bag I'm using, the rest go in the freezer because just in general now I'm looking for deals. Even online and buying coffee online from some places because I've noticed that some of the places that are selling coffee are trying to clear it out or especially mail order places that aren't maybe as getting the same volumes that they were. So that's my hack on
Yeah,
coffee.
I like that.
Are you stocking up on anything else? I mean, you're obviously not in coffee, but with the prices up there, are you looking for deals and a basement full of paper towels or something? Or.
Yeah, I mean, I will probably grab an extra, at times if I feel like it's a good enough deal. So I don't always follow that rule of thumb. I would say that if I was gonna buy even coffee, maybe occasionally would grab a couple extra, but before I'd get as many as I could. You know what I mean? I'd stock up even more so. So we haven't done a lot of that, but I will say, looking ahead, I'm definitely tempted to do it. I mean, what's a little tricky here is just having enough space to put things because we've got other things that are down in the
It's like all of
basement.
us, right?
Exactly. So it's a balance of how much do I have to want to walk through when I go down to the basement. But what's hard for me sometimes when I go to like a bulk store like Costco is just sort of knowing, is that really a good deal? I mean, I'm not recording pricing from other places that we shop, And we are frequenters at Target as well as Aldi for groceries. So we kind of go to three different places, and it's easy to just sort of assume, oh, it's more, it's got to be a better deal per ounce or per unit or whatever. But that could be, I think, something that we do a bit more of. We've done that before, where we'll really price it all out and figure out where to get each thing. And I'm sure there are some of you listening that that do that, which is awesome. I think it takes a little bit of work, but you can then know where to go get different things. And per your kind of ground coffee example, I think you could get your dollar to go further, which is sort of what we're all looking to kind of do right now. And so I think we might move in that direction here.
You're an Aldi shopper, huh?
We are. We are.
Yeah, could you tell me about that? You know, it's funny how we have a couple Aldis near us, and yet how many people, when I say, we got this at Aldi, and they're like, oh, I've never been. You know, I mean, have you ever run into that conversation with people that they never shopped at
Yeah.
an Aldi, don't use an Aldi?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's sort of interesting how it's got kind of a certain brand perception. I mean, it up here in Minnesota, it's kind of, it's definitely viewed as lower end, although some of the Aldis are really nice. I mean, they're brand new, they look great. I have no problem going there. I think you do kind of get the warehousey feel when you're in there because everything's, still in the boxes and that sort of thing, and the selection is limited. But when I think about it, it's like the perception I have of Costco is a little higher end, and it's kind of the same model. I mean, it's like a warehouse with stuff in boxes, and so it's
But they have $1.50 hot dog and pop.
exactly, which is really good. I get that too.
Yeah. I
So
mean, the deals at Aldi are really good. I
yeah,
mean, it's kind of more grocery store-ish than warehouse store-ish, I think, to me.
yep,
But,
yep,
when you do find the frozen goods or the meats, to me, like, especially now where I'm more price conscious, and maybe it just shows up more in the difference between Aldi and Target and Walmart, and Jewel and some of the other places I go. But I'm like, how do they even do it sometimes, And I don't know if this will be true for you, but it kind of strikes me as like a Trader Joe's, where it's kind of in that price point. Everything I've gotten from there is pretty good, but Trader Joe's tends to feel more upscale, kind of a similar experience. I wanted to ask you, for someone who's never been there, and if you go there, can you explain the shopping cart situation for new Aldi shoppers?
yeah. I will be honest, I don't go very often, but I have gone. My wife has been the main one going to Aldi. Yeah, you need to have a quarter, and you put in a quarter, and you are able to take a cart out. And I don't know the story behind it, to be honest. I'm not sure the why. I know it's sort of like a security measure, and honestly, where I live, I understand why why they have it. But then in other areas where there are Aldis, I just don't see the real need for that. So
Yeah, I think it's a cost cutting measure, and the funny thing about it is, it doesn't cost you a quarter. You get your quarter back.
that's right.
So what you do is you go up, you put in a quarter into the shopping cart. It will unhook itself, and then you can shop with it. And then when you go back and hook it back up, you get your quarter back. So I think what the issue is at most grocery stores, you put them in those little corrals out in the parking lot, or you just leave it next to your car, which is what happens around here all the time. And then they pay someone to go out and corral them back up. This kind of forces you to go put it back where you got it, and doesn't cost you anything, but it probably saves them a bunch of money, which is, how you're going to feel it in the checkout line,
Yeah,
hopefully.
well, that's a great point too. In some of the different areas where we shop, you'll be driving, and all of a sudden you'll see, like, by the bus stop or by somewhere, just sort of a random Target cart that's just 2 miles from the store. And so that right there is one of the reasons, because I mean that is either lost, or you have to pay someone to go walk over there and grab that thing and wheel it back.
And if Target wants to sponsor this episode, they can certainly reach out to
Exactly,
us at
exactly.
lmy@bcu.org. Like, to agree with you. I mean, it's kind of funny. Shopping carts are pretty useful, but it's a good thing. And I would say the other thing that new Aldi shoppers have to realize, because I think between that experience and the checkout experience, it starts to feel a little Spartan. And the checkout experience is that you don't get bags. So if
Yes.
you have been to Costco, it's a very similar situation. But can you explain how that works, and they kind of do a little cart swapping and stuff like that
Right.
too?
Well, I mean, it is a little tricky. I mean, I would say they even have sort of less options than Costco. I mean, at least at Costco there are boxes sitting around and you can grab one. I know sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't. So we've just learned to have our own bags. I mean, I think we've even gotten some Aldi bags at one point, and so we just that's maybe our mental cue to bring those along, have those in the car. So we actually have some, I think, just in our van that are there for the time that we might go there. And
Likewise.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean that. So I mean you have to just kind of figure it out. So it maybe takes a little learning, but man, there are certain things that we don't get there. Certain, you know, short shelf life type things. Usually the sometimes the produce and the fruit is not super good. It doesn't last super long. But there are other things where it's just as good and it is way cheaper. So, for anyone looking to save some money, I'd say take a look at it. And just like we were talking about, certain things get at certain places. That can be a smart way to shop. Although I think you have to do the time calculation and the gas calculation now of driving to different places. That does
Yeah.
impact that.
Yeah, life hack: walk to your Aldi, I suppose. Suck up the lost quarter, and I guess walk home with your cart. You could do that. No, I totally agree. It probably depends on what people have in their diet, but I can tell you, the last time we had people over, and we just got one of those frozen packages of, pre-made hamburger patties. It was definitely cheapest at Aldi. They were totally fine. Got us through a family barbecue, and I think a lot of their frozen goods in particular tend to be well priced,
Yep.
and so you do have to kind of think, and I think be strategic about where you're shopping. And I'm going to get this at Costco. I'm going to get this at Aldi, and certainly the hot dog and the pop at Costco.
Yeah.
You always want to do that. Yeah, I do call it me and my wife's country club. You show the card on the way in. You're a member. We go to the pro shop. We look around. I can watch a little TV on some giant TVs there. Try on some beautiful watches, whatever it is, and then eat a bunch of snacks. Little bits of artichoke
Oh
dip and
yeah.
pita bread, and then go to our favorite Italian restaurant right in that place. So it's our country club. That's my life hack, as opposed to being a member of an actual country club. And I think
I love it.
shopping right now is really the tough one. I want to ask you this, and I want to share something with you that I don't know if you've ever heard of, but I wanted to talk about shopping hacks or ways to get discounts. But have you ever heard of Honey or the Retail Me Not Chrome web browser extensions?
Not the extensions, but I have heard of Retail Me Not.
Yeah, okay, so can you tell me what Retail Me Not is, or can you kind of explain what
Yeah.
that website is?
Well, I mean, from what the way I've used it at least is just getting coupon codes to kind of wherever. And I can just tell you that is one of our best family hacks, and it's mainly me. It's mainly my hack that I do for our family. But it's basically to never pay full price for anywhere we go when we're dining out or anywhere. Anything we're shopping, like always just looking for a discount. And even if they don't always work. The codes don't always work, but there are sites like that, and you can even just Google search essentially coupon code for Cold Stone Creamery, coupon code for wherever, and I mean Shutterfly is a big one. I mean there's some that just they always are having deals for different people, and I mean I have saved us a lot of money just by entering those 10% off, 15% off, 20% off, sometimes even more than that, just by a little bit of time. And so if it takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes max to search for those and try them out. You can try a bunch of them out and see if they work. So it's great for online shopping because you can just have it up on your other screen and just try some different codes. And so I've definitely used that.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? Because sometimes people that are a customer of ABC picture frames or something like that will get an email with a code. And what they do is they share that to places like Retail Me Not. They put it up there. If it's a general coupon code that anyone can use, you can just copy paste it, put it in, or they'll usually have like promo code or discount code on the checkout page, and you hit apply. And like you said, to me it's probably 50-50. Most of the time it says like this code is expired or doesn't work, or sometimes it says like 20% off has been added to your cart. Like how awesome is that to save
Yeah.
5, 10, 15, $20. And in fact, why I brought it up was I was recently surprised where I was ordering a coffee tumbler, and it was normally priced. I mean, I didn't think it was expensive. It wasn't this one. I haven't received it yet. But a Retail Me Not coupon code got 75% off with free shipping. So I
I love
almost
it.
thought it was too much to believe, because it actually made the tumbler way cheaper than it would have been to buy it anywhere. I bring this up because when you were talking about the site, I think people are happy to use that, but one thing that people would say is like, when I'm at a website, I don't know if like this website is going to have a discount code. I don't want to go searching for it. I don't have the time or whatever. So I wanted to bring it up because there's a couple of Chrome extensions. And Chrome extensions are these things you can go to the Chrome store and search for these things, and they're kind of like apps. And when you add them, like add to Chrome, it puts that little icon way at the top. I'm not sure where it's looking here on my screen. And you can hide those little icons or not, but what they are little applets that kind of run on your browser. Honey is one of them, and Retail Me Not is another one that I have both of these installed. And what ends up happening is that if you are on a page and you are checking out, and the extension is kind of checking and seeing if they have any discount codes for it. And if it does, it'll usually pop up a little window that says, hey, I found some coupon codes for this site. Do you want to try them? And you just hit try it, and it'll go through all the codes it has. And this might take 5 seconds of code, so it'll kind of show you the spinning wheel for a second. But if it lands on one of them, it'll automatically put that in, and you just check out. And so you don't even need to think, which is really helpful to me, because sometimes I'm like, oh, this website's too small. They wouldn't have a discount code on Retail Me Not. And they find it. Sometimes none of them hit or whatever. But, if you're looking for a little bit of a shopping hack, if you use Google Chrome, go to the Chrome extension app store and look for Honey, Honey, or the Retail Me Not one. I install both of them, and I actually, if either one of them pop up, I'll hit it, apply, or try them. If both of them pop up, I'll usually hit both, and just let it cycle through. And the money saved is real. It's no joke. When they work, it works. So especially when you're buying something online, they can tend to be a little more expensive, especially with shipping. Even if you can get a free shipping code sometimes. I mean, that just can pay for itself there. So I really like that.
That's where I think it can get kind of more real for people, is if you start to add up the dollars that you save, because it can you can kind of get stuck on the percentages or the rates on things. And I know that we've done this, in other calculations and other conversations we've had about what actually are the dollars saved, and then kind of equating those dollars to things that you normally would buy, and sort of then putting it in the terms that you can understand. So, I mean, let's just say it's a tank of gas. How awesome would it be if all of your online shopping for the next month, you saved enough for a tank of gas? I mean, if that pays for your tank or one of the tanks, how cool would that be? And that can feel like a reward, I guess, more of a reward to you than just like, oh, I saved 10% here and 7% here and 15% here, because who really knows what that means? I mean, in the one purchase, it means something, but added up, dollars wise, can be kind of a nice way to put it in terms that you understand. Just like saving money, in a month, putting it in a daily or amount or weekly amount can just make it a little bit more understandable, real for people. Put it in terms that they get, so that they can be like, oh yeah, that is a good amount. That is progress.
I totally agree, because at the end, for most of us, the income is static, right? So what we want is those expenses at the end of the month to be predictable or within the budget. And so what does it matter if my gas is up and I was able to save some money? What I'm really trying to do is just get the numbers to work out, right, by the end of the month.
Yeah.
Not that we wouldn't want gas to be cheaper, groceries to be cheaper, any of that. But I think, the realistic thing is, I'm busy, you're busy, we've got work, we've got life, we've got all these things. You only have a certain amount of time that you can dedicate towards anything. And, just sitting around brainstorming for 6 hours on ways to make or save money is not necessarily practical. I don't even know that it's helpful in most cases. So I think, something like this with the Chrome extension, buying your gas at Costco, thinking about how, like you said, how are you going to run your errands? Are you going to do those in one trip? Kind of the small things that you can do without necessarily making a big brouhaha over it are the best ways, the most practical ways to try to find those savings in your everyday life, because we're just not paid to spend our 9 to 5 looking for ways to spend money. And so, you and I are maybe more tasked to do things like that, but there's only so much you can do. And, you're fighting inflation, and you can't control. I mean,
another interesting shift that I've seen, are you a Google Map user? Do you use Google Maps?
Oh, yeah.
Me too. I even around here, I use it.
I love Street View.
Yeah.
I'll Google Map something and just Street View it to see what it looks like. No real purpose.
Yeah. But. Yeah. It's cool to see the outside of an Aldi or like a Costco, just to just check it out. I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, but as I have mapped out to some new spots, have you noticed that the default route has changed to be now the most fuel efficient route.
Oh, I have seen that. It hasn't really dawned on me, but yeah, they put a little leaf by it, right,
They
or something like
do.
that. Yeah, explain this. So it now will show you multiple routes.
It will show you multiple routes. I didn't know this the first time that it showed me that, and I was looking for speed to route. I was not looking for fuel efficiency. And all of a sudden we're driving and I'm like, why is it sending us this way? We're going on all these like 30-mile-an-hour streets. Why are we cutting through neighborhoods and, dodging, whatever, parked cars on both sides? I mean, it was surprising to me, and I
And
realized,
4 hours
yeah,
later, you're at the
exactly, right,
grocery store.
4 hours, we got it to Aldi. It was just interesting and a good learning that, you're gonna have some options now, but they're trying to do their part because they know that we all are caring about gas prices, and so at least in our area, it's just sending us on, streets that are lower speed limit, essentially. I mean, I think that's basically what it's doing. But in my case, I mean, that adds, 5-10 minutes on everything. So it does kind of matter if you're normally thinking, oh, that's a 20-minute drive. It's like now we're talking 25 or 30, and that we don't bake that in usually when we're planning. So I've had to sort of pick a little bit more selectively on which route we're going to take. But I thought that was interesting because that was a change for me that happened. I didn't know about it until I
Well, and
experienced it.
it's a good point because if you want to try to save money on gas, you might just want to Google Maps it too. See what they say in terms of your gas expenditure, because maybe there's a route you just are not used to taking that might save you some
Good
money. A
point.
little trip to the grandparents' house or wherever it might be, to the golf course or to your favorite weekend place, all of those types of things. I do want to get into something here. I want to get into this book. And
Yeah.
this is really interesting. I think we have some interesting things to talk about. We've never talked about this before, so this will be brand new. But before we get into that, what I would like to do is talk a little bit about our sponsor today and ask you, hey Bjorn, do you have a checking and savings account?
You bet I do. And I bank at my credit union, BCU.
Oh, well, me too. Personally, I love the convenience of banking through the BCU app, like depositing my checks through my phone.
I couldn't agree more. They provide great resources to help people with their financial wellness. I believe the purpose statement is empowering people to discover financial freedom, access to your credit score. They even have wealth advisors to tap into for financial planning.
You don't say. Well, and thanks to BCU's commitment to financial wellness, this program, Life Money You, is where people can specifically focus on their own financial independence.
Yep, and by joining on the journey using our digital tech tools or even getting one-on-one help from a real person like one of our Life Money You goal consultants.
BCU, it's really a financial wellness organization with all the best products of a credit union.
Exactly, Peter. So if you're looking for a checking account with no overdraft fees or you never want to pay ATM fees again, become a member at one of the top 100 credit unions in the country, BCU.
Well, thanks for that, BCU, the sponsor of today's episode. Now, I do want to talk about this. This was something that I just recently was referred to. I had never heard of it before until a few days ago, and I ended up sending you a copy of this. This is actually a book. I believe it is a kid's book, and it is called Tight Times by Barbara Shook Hazen. So you can get this at your local purveyor of books, your local Borders or Barber Books. You probably have a bookstore on every corner in your neighborhood.
We do.
So,
And at
yeah,
our
you
house,
can
too. We've
probably
got a
find
bookstore at our house, too, I think. Yeah.
little library and,
Yes.
and all that. But I sent this to you. I didn't prime you for it. I didn't, tell you what to expect on it. I read through it yesterday. It probably was not quite what I expected. I guess I didn't really expect anything, but I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts. Maybe you could tell us what this is before we get into kind of discussing it and kind of our thoughts on it.
Well, I'll try to get my best LeVar Burton impression on since it's a Reading Rainbow book.
We'll see you next
Yes,
time.
the song was playing in my head. I was back to my childhood. Yeah, so this is a book. I think copyright was 1979, maybe. So I was a little surprised,
Oh,
to be
wow.
honest. I think it's
I didn't even know
yeah,
that.
it was. It's
You're
not,
right.
it's maybe older than one of us on this podcast, and I'm not sure who, but it was.
It's anyone's guess.
It's anyone's guess. Let the viewers guess. So this is a book about from a child's perspective. And let me just start by saying I read this with my kids. We have read this like 10 times. We finished reading it and they wanted me to read it again immediately.
Wow.
So
I think you have had this book maybe 48 hours.
I mean, it was
Right.
they really liked it. So it was definitely a different kind of book, I guess, than they were used to, which was great. I thought that was really fun. So thanks again for sending that. But it's kind of hand drawn illustrations that are throughout that are in black and white, and I think that's kind of intentional. It's supposed to sort of not be super colorful. Yeah, it's supposed to be just like really raw and real. And the idea is that it's from a kid's perspective. He's asking if he can get a dog, and you're starting to realize throughout the story that it's kind of tough times for the parents. The mom is in that picture sewing her own shirt, and the dad, you can tell there's some stress, and the parents are saying like, don't bother me, don't keep asking for a dog. There's some anger and stress that are kind of coming through, and even just as the child describes his day, he's staying with a grandparent, I believe, and they can't. There's certain things they can't do because of money, and all of a sudden the dad comes home. Spoiler alert. Pause now if you want to get this and read it. But the dad comes home and he's lost something, and then the child realizes that he's lost his job. So you can just tell like there's already stress before the job loss, and now it's even more stressful. And kind of right at that moment, the boy is kind of really focused on the dog, and it just, you can kind of see the childness kind of coming through here. And he gets to go outside because the mom's going to talk with the dad, and as he's outside he discovers this cat that's in a trash bin, this super scrawny little kitten. And basically there's a woman who brings him over to show him the kitten, and says, you can have it, it's yours. And he brings it in, and the parents just kind of lose it. They actually cry. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I had a little teared up a little bit as I was reading it, because I just kind of could feel the kind of rawness of what was going on here. And the kid cares for this little kitten and actually tries to get it some milk and spills milk, and you sort of realize that's kind of a big deal for the family because of the cost of that. So they say he can keep the cat, and that's kind of like special moment, I guess. The parents allow him to keep the cat, and they say, but never ask for a dog again. And then the kind of humorous ending is that the dad asks the son, what do you want to call your cat? And he says, oh, I'm going to call him Dog, because I really wanted a dog. And so he calls the cat Dog, and now has this cat. So it's just, it's one of those kids books where it really sparks nice conversation. I mean, it did with my kids too, and because they're kind of like, what does this mean? And it's not, it's not necessarily a happy ending. It was just kind of a real ending, that the kid's trying to figure this all out, and yet there's kind of hard times going on. So I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was kind of a different kind of book. I mean, it's sort of old school, if you will, for a kid's book. It was fun to dig in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, you nailed it. I guess as a kid's book, I kind of expected it to end on a happy note, I found a new job or whatever, or, you get the dog. And, in this case, nothing really happens the way you expect. And in that way, I like kind of the realness of it, the authenticity that I guess I felt. Like you, it was kind of like the same way I feel about Pixar movies. There are these movies for kids, but then sometimes you're getting choked up as the adult, and I'm like, is anyone looking? There were those points where I really related because, when I was younger, my father, when he became a financial planner, when he started that up, and my sister was a little younger, 4 years younger than me, so I think even harder on her. But we were told things were tight. The money was going to the business was not generating money. It's actually one of the reasons that my family stopped giving Christmas gifts. So we had kind of that traditional Christmas where you'd wake up Christmas morning, you'd get gifts from everyone, and kids look forward to that. And when it became kind of like everyone's just going to get one special gift, and then this year we're just going to have a family time together, we're not going to do the gifts. I think as a kid, you can't appreciate how hard it is and sometimes how much is beyond an adult's control, no matter how much. Because I think you and me as parents, right, there's probably no limit to what you would do for your kids. But there's a limit to what you can do for your kids, if that makes sense. And so I understand that, and I have better appreciation for it then. But it's hard, I think, as a kid, you don't see that. You're not balancing the checkbooks. You're not paying the bills. You don't know how much money's coming in. I didn't. And to not see that and not feel a little bit jaded, a little bit like gypped. And so one of the things that I appreciated for this book is I thought it really artfully balanced itself between a book for kids and a book for the parents.
Yep.
And I think what this could do, as I was reading it, is as we maybe have people who are in really tough spots. When I think back to my childhood, I probably wouldn't have understood a book like this fully, but it probably would have helped me see like another family, even though it's a faux family in a book, that I wasn't the only one, because I think it's so easy to compare yourself, especially like kids that go to school. And what did you get for Christmas, or what did you get for the holidays, or what did you get for your birthday, and like, did you get a PlayStation, and to compare yourselves to the people and not really understand that concept of money. And as people maybe struggle with this, and maybe struggle with, I think, talking to your kids about this might be a good way to say, hey, this is a reality, and maybe we're not even in this place yet, but proactively we're going to tighten our belts, because as you said at the beginning of this, to land the plane, maybe some people are just kind of doing what they're doing because they're not sure what they should do. And like, they're not prepared to make any changes. Or maybe they just don't want to interrupt the status quo or interrupt what their kids are feeling. And so it's a short book. It's beautifully done. I mean, I think the graphics here are supposed to be a little bit Spartan, but it's not like cartoonish. It's art in many ways. And so I really appreciated it for that. And like you said, if your kids appreciate it, I think that's the key, is that if you have the audience that can hear this, between both the kids and the adults, this could be a helpful book for parents that are trying to broach that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it could draw out, some different questions from kids. I was trying to think. I think my kids were just, wondering. I mean, they obviously loved the kind of the cat being called the dog. That was probably the thing that was maybe the lighthearted ending note that, that's probably most of what they left with. But they were really intrigued. It wasn't the kind of standard kids book, like you said, where it's sort of just silly or happy the whole time. I don't know if we've read a lot of sad kids books. They're mostly in the other vein, like I just said. So this was just more serious, and I really did appreciate the chance to show them that, and kind of surround that then with some explanation on just what's going on. You made a good point about things being outside of control, even for adults. And I think one of the best things I think we can do for our kids is just to show them, and probably have to explain it, because it's not obvious to them, but just to show them how that fact, that there's only so much we can control. There's a lot of things that are out of control. And so that's why we choose to do this and not do this. This is why we choose to have a savings account. This is why we choose to have some cushion built in, or not overextend every month, because we don't know what's going to happen every time. We've got to be prepared for that. And so that gets back to the planning mindset, having a planning mindset throughout your financial life, that I think is important. It's hard to do. It's hard to always think about it. But when you involve your kids in it, if you have kids, that can be a great way for both the adult and the child to learn.
Absolutely. We're all learning, and no situations are alike, no two recessions or economic contractions are alike. I think that's a great place to end this week's episode on the Life Money You podcast. I do want to say that, we have a lot of things to talk about. We've had some great questions come in as well. So if you want to ask Bjorn questions, I would send those to LMY, stands for Life Money You, at bcu.org. And we will get to as many of those as humanly possible on the next time around the Life Money You podcast. But if you want to pick up this book or any of the other resources that we talked about today, we'll put links in the description. But I am looking forward to having you join us the next time Bjorn and I talk. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.